Today we will recap the 2012 sci-fi action movie called John Carter, where an ordinary man gets teleported to Mars and becomes a hero. So, let's get started. The story begins with a narration about Mars, also known as Barsoom, which has three major cities: Zodanga, Helium, and Tharks. Unfortunately, Mars is getting destroyed because of the continuous battle between the cities of Zodanga and Helium. One day, as the leader of Zodanga city, Sabthan, is about to lose the battle to Helium, three mysterious figures called the Messengers of the Goddess descend from the sky. They help Sabthan win the war by destroying all ships except Sabthan's. They then give him a blue weapon, and their leader, Matai Shang, informs Sabthan that the goddess has decided to take the side of Zodanga city, and if he follows their commands, he will soon rule over the entire planet. In 1881, a man named John Carter sends an urgent telegram to his nephew Edgar, urging him to meet soon. Unfortunately, when Edgar reaches the train station, he is informed that his uncle is dead, and he is buried in a chamber that can only be opened from the inside. John's attorney declares that according to John's will, his nephew Edgar will be the sole owner of all his wealth and a personal diary. Edgar gets curious and starts reading the diary, in which John writes that the story started 13 years ago in Arizona Territory when he used to search for gold. One day, Colonel Powell urges John to fight with his army, as John is an experienced soldier with great military accomplishments. But John rejects the colonel's offer and gets imprisoned, and after several failed attempts, he succeeds in running away on the colonel's horse. When the colonel is informed about John's escape, he follows John with his squad. However, John joins the enemy group, creating great tension between the two sides. Suddenly, gunfire starts, and John takes advantage of the situation to escape. But he soon notices that the colonel is shot, so he takes the colonel with him and runs toward a small cave. Soon, the enemy approaches them, but they all back away after watching something on top of the cave. When John goes out, he notices a spider symbol that scares the enemies. He gets back inside and starts exploring the cave and realizes that it's a gold cave. Suddenly, a mysterious figure appears behind John and tries to attack him with a knife, but John fights and knocks down the mysterious man. John then notices the man has a medallion in his hand, and his last words were Barsoom. As soon as John touches the medallion, he says Barsoom and gets teleported into a strange desert. John tries to walk but falls repeatedly. After several attempts, he learns to walk by jumping from one place to another. He climbs a mountain and notices eggs being hatched, which makes John disgusted, and he tries to leave. However, a group of green creatures called Tharks approach him. They try to kill him, but their leader Tarkus spares John's life, and he also picks up the medallion. They then take him hostage and return to their city. Meanwhile, Princess Deja of Helium City tries to show her discovery, called the Ninth Ray, to her father and his top soldiers. However, a mysterious man secretly destroys her device, and Deja gets humiliated. Later, her father informs her that only she can save their city by marrying Sabthan. Princess protests but yields after her father convinces her to sacrifice for her city. When Tharks take John back to the city, they put him with other babies in a cave and tie his hands with chains. At night, a woman named Sola feeds him a strange liquid, and John starts speaking the language of Barsoom. Later, a large monstrous dog called Woola approaches John, and he gets scared. John breaks free from the chains, and after exiting the cave, he notices a party taking place on a high mountain and goes to retrieve his medallion. However, Woola comes looking for him and enters the party, where Tharks start hitting it. John jumps in to save Woola and accidentally kills a Thark. The chief gets impressed with John's strength and stops the mob from attacking him. Everyone blames Sola for her negligence with John, and she is punished publicly by marking her body with a hot iron. Suddenly, a man notices flying battleships in the sky and alerts everyone, so they all hide and watch the scene. Tarkus informs John that 2 red ships are from Zodanga, while 1 blue ship is from Helium. Soon, the Zodanga overpowers Helium's ship and tries to kidnap Princess Deja. However, she tries to escape and is about to fall when John notices her and jumps up to save her. He reaches the ships and fights off Zodanga soldiers. Sabthan tries to kill him, but the Messengers of Goddess stop him as they want John alive. When Tharks notice that John is in trouble, They shoot the battleships from the ground, and John manages to escape while Zodanga ships decide to retreat. Now all Tharks are impressed by John's jumping and fighting skills and consider him their new weapon. The chief names John as his right hand, but John initially rejects the offer. However, he later reluctantly accepts. Deja feels amazed that John can jump so high and asks him to teach her this skill, but John acts oblivious about his ability to jump very high. Deja then draws the solar system and realizes that John is from Earth, which she calls Jarsum, and explains that he is now on Barsum. They head towards the Temple of Goddess despite warnings from Sola, and find writings on the temple stating that if they seek answers, they must travel through the gates of Isis. Deja promises John that she will take him there, but suddenly Tharks apprehend them and decide to kill them all. But Chief Tarkus secretly helps them to escape with the condition that they would take Sola with them, and John realizes that Sola is the daughter of Tarkus. John retrieves the medallion from the chief, and he, Sola, and Deja start their journey towards the river of Isis. During their journey, Sola warns John that Deja is taking them to Helium. John confronts her, to which Deja confesses that she wants John's help saving her city, and states that she ran away because she didn't want to be married forcefully. John promises to help her after their journey to River Isis. Soon, they reach an area where they spot an inverted pyramid. John, along with Deja, jumps up to see it clearly and notices blue lights emerging from under his feet. They go inside the pyramid. Deja puts the medallion in the center, and 9 blue rays emerge which rotate and form the solar system. Deja promises John she will help him return to Earth, and they kiss, but they are interrupted by Sola's warning voice. John and Deja retrieve the medallion and notice that the army of Matai Shang surrounds them. John then orders Sola and Deja to leave while he stays behind to fight, but soon he gets overpowered. Meanwhile, a battleship from Helium emerges above them and shoots at attackers to save John. When the ship lands, Deja's father rushes out to hug his daughter. However, she gets surprised to see that Sab Than accompanies her father, who asks her to marry him. She agrees with this condition if they take John with them for healing. A few hours pass, and John wakes up in Zodanga territory, noticing the tight security around him. A mysterious man appointed by Deja fetches John to her chamber. They come across Princess Deja dressed in bridal attire, who asks John to fight for her. And when he refuses, she notices the wedding ring on his hand and gets heartbroken. She finally tells him magic words that would transport him back to Earth, but before John can reply, the door suddenly opens and John vanishes. Sab Than arrives and takes Princess to a wedding parade in the city. However, John is shown hanging by the ceiling, and he is approached by the matron of the chamber, who fires a blue ray and immobilizes John. Suddenly, the matron transforms into Matai Shang and forces John to accompany him. When they get stuck in a large crowd, Shang transforms into a Zodanga army officer and passes through the crowd. Later, he transforms into an old lady to avoid suspicion. They both watch the wedding parade when Shang informs John that the princess will be killed after the wedding. Shang then orders to prepare a 2-person flyer to send John as a prisoner to an unknown location. Luckily, Woola arrives and attacks Shang, which breaks his curse, and John escapes on the flyer before he reaches Sola in a deserted place. They then reach the Tharks tribe, who imprison Sola and John realizes that Tarkus is also imprisoned as his rival Tal Hajus overthrew him. Soon, they are taken to a huge ground surrounded by a large crowd and are forced to fight 2 giant white apes. Sola causes a distraction, and John defeats the apes and challenges the leader, Tal Hajus. John beheads Tal Hajus in 1 strike from the sword and becomes the new leader of Tharks. He orders them to fight with him for Helium, and they all march towards Zodanga, only to find that everyone has gone to Helium for the wedding. As they have a very short time, John encourages his army to reach Helium on a flyer, but they refuse to fly, so John gets on a flyer to reach Helium. John reaches on time to stop the wedding and announces that the wedding is a trap, and Zodanga soldiers are ready to attack Helium. Sab Than gives his army a signal, and the army from Zodanga starts fighting Heliumites. Tharks also approach the scene with a huge bang, and they fight along with Heliumites against the Zodanga soldiers. Sab Than and John get into sword fight, and during their fight, the blue ray weapon of Sab Than falls onto the ground, and its rays accidentally fall on him, which kill him instantly. During this battle, John's medallion falls somewhere and Tarkus holds it. But Shang cleverly impersonates John and tries to get the medallion. John quickly jumps to stop Tarkus and holds a sword towards Shang, who disappears instantly. Later, John and Deja get married, but as they get to their wedding chamber, John feels restless, so he goes to the balcony and throws away his medallion. As he tries to return to his room, a guard stops him and suddenly transforms into Matai Shang, who sends John back to Earth. John wakes up in the Arizona cave, heavily bearded and full of dust, while Colonel Powell is all dust and bones. John gets rich with all the gold he finds from the gold cave and builds a big estate. He dedicates the rest of his life in search for Therns on Earth in hopes of returning to Mars. One day, he finds a medallion. The last words of his diary state that Edgar must protect John's body as Therns will try to harm it. Edgar rushes to John's death chamber and realizes he can open its lock. Just as he succeeds, a Thern approaches him from behind and tries to kill him. Suddenly, a bullet sound appears, and Thern is killed by John. John made this plan to get the medallion. He states that he took a drug that made him look dead to draw out a Thern to get the medallion. John further informs Edgar that his most important duty will be to protect John's body as he returns to Mars. John then hugs Edgar and returns to his chamber. Lying down, holding the medallion, he says the words that transport him back to Mars. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.